Hi, everyone. I'm Joelle Lumen, co-chair of the PGA Mentoring Committee. And on behalf of the PGA, welcome and thank you for joining our panel today with musicians turned producers Kenneth Babyface Edmonds, Chris Ludacris Bridges, and Ricky Minor. The purpose of this event is to educate and empower young entertainment professionals, including up-and-coming producers of color, by sharing the experiences of these three highly successful Black musicians who've crossed over from the front of the stage to behind the lens. The session will begin with a Q&A moderated by Gil Robertson, president of Aafca, and Janine Rubenstein, music editor of People magazine. And in the last 15 minutes, they'll be taking questions from the audience. If you have a question, you can type it in the Q&A section. There's a Q&A button at the bottom. You can type your questions in there and we'll get to as many as we can. Thank you and enjoy the panel.
Guys, how you doing?
Good, man.
Good.
Hi, I'm Gil Robertson, obviously, from the African American Film Critics Association. And my co-moderator today is the very lovely and talented Janine Rubenstein from People.
Hi, guys. How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
So we're going to get started today with questions that basically delve into your identities as musicians who have successfully transitioned into TV and film. Janine, as the fairest one of all of us, I am going to give you the you have the first question.
Thanks. This is quarantine. All me this month. Thank you. I appreciate it. Guys, thank you so much for even being here and speaking out in this moment. It's such a pivotal moment in entertainment in this country, and just your presence here and speaking to your experience is, I know, so valuable for me, but also everyone who's tuning in. So I just want to say that I really appreciate you. First thing first, this is a moment where we're talking about things that are pivotal, and making it into TV, producing was a pivot in your own career. When exactly could you mark that moment? This question is for each of you, that it took place. If you said, okay, I've done my thing in music, I have really made it and captured the hearts of America with this one particular talent of mine, I'm going to take it to the small screen or big screen. And what gave you the courage and the impetus to do that? Let's go with Babyface.
I knew that was going to come to me first. I think it's one of those things where it kind of happens naturally. I remember for some reason, the first time I remember having anything to do with TV and music was doing the Martin Lawrence wedding, right, when he got married. And I sung "You Are So Beautiful" on it. And so it's part of the wedding and was actually in the show. And it felt, it just felt kind of natural to be able to do music for for that scene and for everything. And so I got an interest actually at that point, way back then. And otherwise, it kind of happened through doing movie soundtracks. And you started doing, when we started doing all these soundtracks became such a big part of movies. And so when we started with our first soundtrack that we did, which was Boomerang, with the face of me and LA did that. And the first person that got us interested in it, we couldn't believe the success of it. And it was Cassandra Mills, who worked over at, I think it was Giant at the time, and New Jack City happened, and how big that was. And she had that Color Me Bad record that just blew up. And we were like, well, how do you do that? How we get in on that? And she kind of explained to us, gave us the basic strokes of what we had to do, and had to find the right film, find a producer, find a director, find people that would be interested in the music that we might deliver. And we met with Reggie Hudlin, and Reggie gave us that shot. And then Eddie Murphy also had to have the final say so as well, who would do it. And then he gave us that shot as well. So that was the first time that we actually sat down and looked at the scenes and started trying to imagine what kind of music would be there. And since almost kind of like a scoring a little bit, but not exactly, but just kind of just writing what you saw on that screen and writing what you felt in your heart. And that was kind of like the beginning of matching music to acting and to scenes that you feel. And it became a thing that was, it was fun, it was hard work at the same time. It's a lot more difficult doing that because when you're just making a record, you're the only cook in the kitchen. And when you start doing something for movies, besides the director, besides the producer, there's so many other people that have opinions that you got to deal with. And so it takes not only just, you have to work hard, but you also have to kind of take your ego out of the picture a little bit, because you're going to get beat up. You might be excited about something, but you got to work with people. And if you do that, if you do it right, then it can be a great experience. But so my experiences started way back there. And as each time as things came up, for whether it was Excel doing Excel to Soul Food to Boomerang to doing the music for Josie and the Pussycats to just a variety of things. As a musician, you kind of want to be able to do everything. You don't want to have to be pinholed in one particular genre, if possible. And that's where, that's where it helps you. And it depends on, and that's where you that's where also you look to people like Ricky Minor, who, like, this guy who, as a musician, he can do anything and everything, and he can write it, and he can talk to to people that are the orchestra. He can talk to musicians in a different way than a kid that's just off the street, just playing. And that's where, so it's a thing where you not only do it yourself, but you also work with other musicians as well to help make that happen. I don't know if I'm going everywhere, but it sounds like I'm going everywhere. But that's the gist of it to begin with.
No, it's great. I mean, you provided a good segue to Ricky, someone who has been behind pretty much every single award show, every variety show, and just spread his talents across the TV landscape. Ricky, what was your moment going from, just managing music, producing music for individual artists, to bringing that to the TV screen?
Yeah, well, for me, it started with Whitney Houston, and having someone who believes in you is really where it counts. I mean, you need to have someone to help champion you and really push you a little forward, because I think fear and self-doubt can paralyze you, and you don't feel like you have a place, or is it going to be good enough, And I think that her encouragement to not only take the lead when John Simmons, who was her music director who hired me, passed away, and she gave me the opportunity to be music director for her. And I think that gave me confidence and kind of pushed me. And my first credit was on one of her specials as associate producer. Said, well, look, you had the idea of the concept of the show, you've got the orchestra, you've got the arrangement. I mean, you should get a producer credit. And of course I protest. I said, no way, I don't want, no, just kidding. I was like, oh, great. Now, does a check come with that? Because I'm curious, because a lot of times, people feel like, look, you got a credit. I mean, you should be happy. You're a producer now, but you don't understand the business. So I would say, as you're building, make sure you surround yourself with a team that can protect you from the things that you don't know. There's no harm in not knowing. The harm is not asking for help when you need it. So I don't mind. I'll pick up the phone and call anyone for help. And if I don't understand something, ask. And so that was my first one. And after that, I started producing The first TV show after that was as a co-producer of the NAACP Image Awards. And I did that for about 10 years, along the way, building other credits. And that's kind of how it all started. But I do like the creative process, and to echo what Kenny said, I mean, it's really, you got to work with a lot of people, and it's not just the music community that you're working with. And some people have an opinion about how it feels, and every opinion, as you're working as a team, everyone is valuable and they have a different insight. So you just got to keep yourself open.
So you understood the importance, each of you understood the importance of diversification early on, and the value that it would bring to your careers long term.
Yeah.
Ludacris, talk about your journey making that transition.
Yeah, man, for me, I kind of lucked up. I was actually on tour with Eminem at the time, and I got a call that John Singleton, may he rest in power, wanted me to try out for a role in Too Fast, Too Furious movie. And, you know, I had thought about, obviously, you know, trying to dive into movies and characters before, but not that early on, because I think I had only been commercially successful for 3 years. So it was like my second or third album. And like I said, I was just completely in the music realm. And of course, once he made that call, I put myself on tape. I was actually backstage at one of the concerts, about to go on stage in 20 minutes. And I remember they saying there needed to be a rush. So I kind of went over the lines and I did my best, you know, in that fast amount of time. And I got the call the next day that I got the role. Luckily, my first role as Tej in Too Fast, Too Furious, with my big afro and everything, wasn't too far of a stretch from the actual personality that I am as Chris Bridges. So I always look at it like that. It was more just about learning, you know, just the fundamentals of being able to recite lines and to a degree dive into a character when everyone is looking you dead in your face and the director is giving you, you know, direction, of course. And that's pretty much how I got my start, man, doing that. And then I started hearing some positive feedback. And then from there came Crash and Hustle and Flow. And those were some really defining moments for me, as it's very difficult to be considered and respected as an actual actor when you come from the music world, because a lot of people see that you're getting the opportunity just because you're popular and because you have your own fan base. But once I was able to do Crash and Hustle and Flow and these things that got all these Oscar, not only wins, but nominations, then a lot of people in the respected acting world started looking at me as one of their own. And that's pretty much where I got my start.
You know, in many ways, the three of you are trailblazers. I mean, Ricky, other than Harold Wheeler, I don't know any other person in the industry that has had the same type of success and access and, you know, on those big stages. Talk about that, and talk about, you know, being the only one, particularly now, you know, as we are dealing with the circumstances that we're living in.
Yeah, I think that sometimes it's daunting when you're in a big room and it's, you know, 2 or 3 African Americans on it and everyone else is not, and you're trying to convey something sensitive in terms of how you're going to portray this particular song and how relevant it is, and what culturally is important. And sometimes it's you know, you go home at the end of the night with a heavy heart, you know, because you're trying to push this up the hill, this really important, say you're doing a tribute to someone like a Cicely Tyson, and it has to be impactful, or in this case, like Denzel Washington, you know, and I've done both those, and, you know, the ideas have to be sensitive to the people. And so it is challenging, but I think that for me, it only fuels the fire that I must. And if I'm given this opportunity, then I have to make it count, not only be at the highest level, but be my best authentic self every moment of every day. And so if I can go in that room and convey still with passion, but not with anger, but with passion about why this is important. And I think that anyone, you know, with a heartbeat will understand that.
Yeah, actually want to extend that question to Kenny and Chris, like being the only one in the room, the only one at the table. Do you find that, I mean, I know it happens in music as well, but you know, when you made that leap into TV and film, was that a bit of a culture shock for you at all? Or were you used to being, you know, that guy?
Man, I would just say that, of course, it was a culture shock for me, because to continue on from what I previously said about me getting on that set for the first time, I had to learn a lot. Basically, there's a stereotype that comes with rappers, and I would always wonder why I would show up on set and be in my trailer for 3 hours waiting to go on set. And I think everyone assumed that I would be there with a big entourage. It'd be a lot of smoke coming out of my trailer, and I'm one of those individuals that's always on time, always respectful. So it was a hell of a shock for me to get adjusted, but it was more of a shock for people to get adjusted to me, making sure I was professional and not being a rapper showing up to a movie set. I was wanting to be very professional and respectful of everyone's time. So that's how I feel about it.
I think that it's interesting. Ricky said something like, initially he was questioning whether, you know, am I good enough for this job? And can I handle it? And I think that's what a lot of us would do, because there's so few of us there. You know, you think of it, you see Quincy or you see Harold there, and you think that, well, this isn't for us. And so when it was, like when Forrest Whitaker came to me with Exhale and said, yeah, I can write a couple songs. And then he said, but I want you to score. I said, I don't know about that. That's a little much. And I had to keep reminding myself I was worthy, that, you know, that I could watch that, and all I had to use was my heart to find my way, you know, to make it happen. And that's the thing what Ricky was talking about, the passion. The passion is everything. It's in everything that you do. And when you have that, it's in with Chris, when he's acting. The reason why he was able to do it, because it was in him. And we just have to kind of like believe in ourselves that that we can own that. And that's the biggest thing, is just knowing that you can do it. And we get pushed back so many times of thinking that this isn't for us, or this isn't something that we do. And that same thinking goes in terms of genre, whether, you know, well, maybe it should just be something Black, or maybe it should just be, you know, you can only do this particular kind of music. And that's why I would push myself to do other things, because I didn't want to get in that trick pony where you are only looked at as a particular kind of genre. And
yeah, and I'm sorry, I was gonna say, to piggyback off what Babyface is saying earlier, it is a culture shock for us, because I think he said it very clearly, in that as artists, we have kind of a blank canvas and we can create something from absolutely nothing. But when you go into the world where you have a writer, a director, a producer, and you're kind of playing one part of that, that's probably the biggest culture shock of all, the difference between the two. We're just so used to being free and being able to do whatever we want to do and create nothing from something. And then you go in and you have to play a small part in a bigger role of a lot of different things.
So it's a new set of beats and rhythms that I'm sorry, Kenny, you were going to add.
No, go ahead.
It's a new set of beats and rhythms that you have to get adjusted to as you find yourself in this TV film environment. Let's talk about balance. How do you balance those two worlds? Because of course you're still an active artist, musician, but at the same time you're also doing the TV and film thing. And I know there might be conflicts with touring, recording deadlines, et cetera, et cetera. So how have you been able to find balance in maintaining both identities?
Yeah, man, I think that's a great question, because I still don't know the answer to that. I have no idea how the hell I found the balance to do two. Somehow, some way, there's a higher power that has guided me to be able to complete both. But I can say it gets more and more challenging the more that you do it. And so there might be gaps in between me putting out music, and it has a lot to do with me trying to focus and be in character for something. And I just think that's a phenomenal question, Gil, just because it's difficult, man. It's very difficult for me. I think everybody handles it different, but you know, as an artist, it's like you continue, and I'm sure Babyface can attest to this, you have to constantly reinvent yourself just as an artist alone. So you have to continue to try and push the envelope and do things that you've never done, especially when you're coming out with your own music, because people don't want to hear the same thing over and over again. And then when you're picking specific movie roles, you kind of got to make sure you don't get typecast and do the same role over again. So you have to challenge yourself even more when you get the role that you want that's going to take you away from everything else that people thought you could do. So the more and further you go on, it's these two tangents and they keep going further away from each other. And you'll get at a point where it's a fight, man. It's a fight. Babyface, please, I want to hear what you got to say to this one.
Well, I think you're right, but I think the best way to look at it, because if you're writing songs, if you're producing, or if you're acting, the whole thing is like all of it is your artistry. So when you're not doing the music and you're acting, that's your artistry. And when you're doing the music, that's still your artistry. If you're just writing a song, that's your artistry. Everything is. When I'm hearing someone else performing a song that I've written, that's my artistry. Everything is all part of this thing that God gave us, this gift that God gave us. And so, you don't have to feel spread out, because it's all part of you. And at certain points, the thing that becomes great, at a certain point, you get to a point to where there are a whole lot of things come in, and that's where you're put in a position to where you're able to pull in other people and pull in younger people that can help you and do other work, and then they start to build careers and build. So you're able to help others do the same thing that you're doing.
Great point.
That's still your art. Once again, you touching other people to touch other people. So the more that we work together and help each other, I mean, honestly, the first time when I heard Whitney Houston performing on TV live, and Ricky was the band, and I heard that, I was like, who did that music? Who was that? Because that sounded better than the record. The emotion, the things that was hidden. And I was like, he's a producer. That's the real passion. And the one thing I always gave Whitney is, Whitney was the best TV performer ever. Every time that she hit that stage on TV, she'd knock it out the park. And it was always with the arrangements. And so that hit me like, well, who's that? So you start asking questions about who does what and who does this, because that's what you listen to get inspired by. And so now you're looking for not just Ricky Minor, but the new little Ricky Minors that are running around, people that are able to do that too, because the truth is there's more than enough work for everybody to be able to do. We just got to make sure that everybody has the chance to be able to do that, and they believe that they can do it, because for the most part, they don't look at you and think that you can handle it and that you can pull it off. And so that's why you give people chances to kind of prove it, because I just have to say that when we as a people grab something and take something with our passion, amazing things happen and beautiful things happen. There's something special about it. So once again, if you look at it all as like, it's all my artistry, you don't have to worry about, you ain't put a record out. Chris, you ain't got to worry about when's the last time you put a record out. It doesn't matter so much, because what you are, you're ludicrous. And that goes everywhere at this particular point. So when you decide to do it, that's when you decide. And the time will tell you when it's right and when it's not. And that's the good thing about it too, because as you're going through things, that's kind of whack. I ain't gonna mess with that. You kind of get to learn, yourself and get better at what you're even doing, as long as you're paying attention, and it looks like you've been paying attention. So that's all good things.
Well, brother, I can definitely say that the good thing is that I am inspired by you, and it is a little easier as an artist once you have over about 9 or 10 albums for you to take your time and put out more music. But so I appreciate you for being a driving force and an individual that motivated me to even get to the point where we're in the elite amount of individuals. I mean, obviously you're in a class all by yourself, but to be an artist that can say they have a certain amount of body of work, is a beautiful thing all by itself. But all I was saying is that if you have 2 or 3 albums and you out here taking your time, that's different than if you got 9 or 10 albums and you out here taking your time. So thank you for being you and everything that you've done to contribute to the culture and raise individuals like myself from a mentality of it can be done and it is possible. And no matter what genre any of us are in, man, you're a trailblazer and a pioneer. And I'm sure you've heard that many times, but it doesn't hurt coming from an individual like myself right now.
I appreciate that. I just let me say one thing to you.
Yeah.
It's not the quantity, it's the quality of the album that you did.
That's true. That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Look, you just shut up everything I just said. That's 100% correct. If you come out with an album like Kendrick Lamar and you're getting Pulitzer Prizes, it don't matter if that's one album or none, but you are correct. Thank you, sir, for correcting me on that. You're right. Yep.
Ricky, you were going to say something?
No, I exactly what these guys said, but I want to add that, you know, we are perfect in everything that we do. And the fact is I know what I know, and then there's everything else. So I'm all right with that. I don't have to know everything. And like Kenny said earlier, is that, you know, what I don't know, I'm not ashamed to call people in and bring in a team. I mean, working on shows like the Oscars and the Grammys and Emmys and all these kind of event TV shows, Aretha Franklin specials and all this stuff, is that it's because of the team. And I think for me, the balance, you were asking earlier about the balance, for me, it's I got the Virgo brain. So I take like copious notes and I'm organized, and I have a different team for each project going on at, you know, 5 or 6 projects all at once, shows back to back. And it's about making a list and then going right to it. And every day getting up in gratitude, only attitude is gratitude. Wake up with that, you're good. And then you just move forward, bring your team together, talk about this, make your checklist. Whatever doesn't get done today is going on tomorrow's list. And every day you just wake up with that gratitude, because right now someone would give anything to be in the position to do one thing that either of you guys have done, you know, just one, just be in a room one time with anyone that you're in, to be on the set with Luda, to be in the studio. I mean, so that gratitude is going to let you know that your best authentic self is not only good enough, it's excellent.
I love that. I mean, you guys have been so inspiring to so many people. It's nice that you're inspiring to each other, but to millions of people. Like when you talk about the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack, it's just like, thank God you worked up the courage, because that changed my life. It changed so many people's lives. And same with Luda, same with you, Ricky. I want to know, out of all of these projects that you've had a deeper hand in, aside from the album, with production specifically and with on the screen, what is one that for you really stands out, and take us through just, I guess, the after effects of looking at what you did with that particular, be it the Oscars, you know, putting that together, or you know, a particular film that you worked on, Chris, or a particular soundtrack. Kenny, like, what was the one that you kind of look back at and you say, I did that?
Oh, for me, it's easy. It would definitely be Crash. So there's a whole story that goes along with that. And it was an independent movie and everyone was getting paid scale. I mean, if you look back at all of the A-list actors that were in it, and I was just getting started, and just even be a part of that ensemble was phenomenal. But, you know, I think we all had a good idea that it was going to shake up the world and cause a lot of great conversation, just from preconceived notions of how people think about other races. And it was way far ahead of its time. But in terms of, you know, once it got out there and started winning these awards, like the Critics' Choice Awards and, you know, the People's Choice Awards, and we were just, it was crazy. It was just crazy.
It won an Aafca. It was our best movie of the year.
Yeah, right. So for me, it was great because I remember that year we won a couple awards, and I remember Brokeback Mountain or something. It was winning all of the big awards for Best Picture that year. And then when we got to the Oscars, we felt that obviously Brokeback was going to win again. And if anybody looks up or Googles that moment, And you look at the look on all of our faces when they say that Crash is the best picture, Oscar winner, Academy Award for best picture. We were all completely surprised because we had no idea whatsoever. And that was a defining moment for me, not only for being in the movie, but just from the experience of going through that whole campaign trail and just, you know, all the award ceremonies and just being accepted as a true actor, and what that movie has done till this day to create conversation and create change. So that's an easy one for me.
What about you, Kenny?
It's hard to say because I think there are just so many different moments of just throughout my history where I'm always in disbelief. Like, really? This happened? I'm kind of like, you know, I got the Taylor Swift half the time. You know, it's like, but because it's like each time that you finish something, first of all, you got to talk yourself into saying, I'm good enough, I can do this. Which honestly, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because it pushes you to try to go harder. If something seems like it's difficult, rather than giving up, you kind of just, you push yourself and you don't run away from it, but you don't go into it cocky, like, you know, I got this. And that all depends on the personality of each person. So for me, each time that something would happen, it's like, even though, like with Excel, even though you had you had every great singer there to work with, you didn't know what, I didn't know what I would do on them, whether it would last, whether everybody would feel the same way. Working with Forrest on the movie, that you didn't know whether it was going to really connect, and so you can be proud of an accomplishment that you can do, but I can be just as proud of doing this little small movie called Josie and the Pussycats, where it was completely just, you know, like punk rock, you know, bubblegum rock almost to a certain extent, that I was able to work with a few artists that helped teach me how to do that as well. And so it was another thing that I could take home with me. Because you do certain things, it opens other doors. From that, all of a sudden, I'm working with Fall Out Boy, which you would have never seen that. So things that happen in your life that kind of that you accomplish, they take you to other places. And so there's not one particular thing, because each thing that you do could take you to a whole other place that had nothing to do with whatever you were doing. So it's not one particular project that I can say, that's the one that made all the difference. I think it's a combination of everything that you do that ultimately, you know, opens up the doors for anything that you do.
For sure. How about you, Ricky?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to echo that. I mean, so strongly that everything leads to the next thing. And I when he was saying that, I thought about my, I grew up in the projects in Watts, and I sang in a little group trying to be like the Jackson 5, and I sang Jermaine Jackson's part, and we had a little high school band that backed us up. And then they graduated because they wanted to play jazz and, you know, all hip and everything. So my uncle said, you guys got to learn the instrument. And I picked the bass. I mean, it was that me. I picked the bass because I wanted to keep my part, you know, because Jermaine had a couple of lines in there, you know what I'm saying? So I wanted to keep that. I wanted to keep playing, singing in that part. But that started something. See, that got the ball rolling. So each thing just built on the other. And you couldn't have told the little Ricky at 12 years old that he'd be conducting the Oscars one day. So all the work in between, you can't tell me which the next thing to come, that I would even meet Whitney Houston, let alone at that time when she was 18 and I was 22. So I mean, all these things just build on the other, but it's important that you recognize your responsibility in it moving forward. You can get an opportunity, but you've got to make each one count. So you got to show up, show out.
You guys, we're in Black Music Month. Sorry, Janine. You know, it's a month about music that's very specific to our culture. What does it mean to each of you?
I'm gonna let Babyface start off with that one.
What's the question again, Nancy?
Well, I mean, we're in Black Music Month. What does that mean to you? It's a certified, you know, officially stamped, sanctioned, government sanctioned month celebrating the legacy of Black creators like the three of you. How do you feel about it?
To be honest, every month is Black History Month to me.
Thank you. Thanks.
And Black Music Month.
Yeah, and Black, it's because it's forever. It just doesn't happen in one month that we finally, you know, we arrive. I think we are always here, and people are always, whether it's our films or whether it's our music, it's in everybody's hearts all the time. So to a certain extent, you know, I appreciate it, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, we're always here, and I'm always celebrating it. Every time you turn on the radio, you're celebrating it because you're listening to the influence in any and everything we do. Anything that's popular, we're usually behind it. So I think that it's great to put a microscope on it, but it's always here. So
Yeah, I would add to that by saying he's 100% correct in that it's always here. And if you trace the roots of music in this country back to the origin, you know, whether we're talking about spirituals, whether we're talking about gospel, we're doing into rock and roll, we're talking about jazz, that, you know, formed into hip hop, all these different things, they originated from one point. So Black Music Month means nothing to me in this country. I feel like it's Black music every single day. It has been from the start. And that's how I'll leave it with that. I don't want to get too deep.
Yeah, I think, look, out of pain and suffering comes great lessons. And in the same way, that music represents a deeper connection to our soul and our purpose for all of us. And I will say, out of the suffering, when you hear Aretha Franklin sing "Hurts Like Hell," if you don't feel that, then check your heartbeat. Just check. Have somebody take you to the hospital right now. Check it out. And I'm telling you, and everything that Aretha sang, because it came from a deeper place. And I think that that's what everyone connects to Black music, Black culture, Black storytelling, because this is, and it wasn't like by choice that the pain and suffering is felt and that the trauma is felt right this very moment throughout the world, because this trauma is real and has been real. And and the only way that we're going to move forward, any of us, is that everyone needs to own up to responsibility. Every single living being.
Preach. And just to add to that real quick, it's funny you say that because I just started a platform and we released a video today it's by kids and for kids, and it's a song called Get Along. So when you are off of this particular panel, I would love for you guys to go to kidnation.com and look at this song and video called Get Along. And Janine, you know, especially you and Gil, I just would appreciate it because I feel like you're going to get very emotional, and it may be something you want to spread to even more people than are just on this panel right now. So thank you for that segue, Ricky, because you're 100% correct. And it speaks towards everything that's going on right now, but it puts you in the innocent mindset of a child and how they feel. So Kid Nation, thank you guys.
I'm on it.
I love that. I actually had the talk with my 5-year-old after the Sesame Street CNN town hall this weekend. So I'll be tuning into that.
Wait till you see this. Wait till you see this. Even more powerful.
So to that point, I wanted to ask about what is the role of the producer in this moment that we're in right now? Just shifting over, we've seen these protests sweeping the nation. The pain that is felt in the Black community is nothing new, but the reaction seems very different than anything that I've experienced in my lifetime. just the overall community that seems to be forming around this particular case. But what would you say, everyone has been kind of digging for, what is my role in this? What can I do? What would you say the role is for the producer at a moment like this? And what's the role for Hollywood?
When you say producer, you mean music producer? You talking about movie producer? What do you mean?
Let's go with movies. Let's go with Hollywood and movie producers, but you can tie in the music as well.
I mean, it all goes under the umbrella that art is supposed to imitate life right now. And there are some people that I just feel, whether you're a producer behind the camera or whether you're a producer in music, you got to write to what you feel. And there's an extreme emotion and extreme feeling and all type of different emotions, frustration, anger, you know, and I think that should lead with how you're going to produce whatever is going on at the moment. And I feel like there are a lot of people that are not able to come out with art at this moment because they don't really understand how to imitate art in the way in which life is presenting itself at this particular moment.
Yeah.
What about you, Kenny?
This is it's interesting for me because I think that what happens a lot in times like this, and although we are at a unique time, we haven't been here. But you know, as an artist, there are so many people that are trying to put the "We Are the World" song together right now, and I don't know that people and I don't know that people want to hear "We Are the World" right now. To be honest, I don't. It's a different time and it's a different feeling, and people don't listen to music the same way, so they're not quite as kumbaya, if you know what I'm saying. They don't necessarily want to hear it; they want to see it, they want to feel it. And when you're seeing it and feeling it, you're seeing and feeling it when you're seeing all these people that are marching on the streets that would have never marched before. Now, I do believe that part of it is COVID-19 has kind of like also helped this situation as well, because nobody was working, nobody got any jobs, everybody. So for once, everybody is actually available to pay attention. They don't have other things in their life going on. So now they can actually see, oh, wow, that kind of sucks, what I just saw. Where it also sucked what we just saw 2 months earlier, you know, with Arbery. It's been sucking for a while for little things. Maybe it's not tons and tons of it, but it's just enough to where we're now at this point where the world changed a little bit when they finally saw on Memorial Day, they saw, you know, George Floyd get killed the way that he got killed. The world changed that day. And it changed because for once, people opened up their eyes and didn't close them. And they had to keep watching for almost 9 minutes. And with that, it finally touched people that it wouldn't have touched before. And so when you look at the protests and you look at people walking, many times you'll see people walking, you won't see any, you'll see very few blacks there. It'll be as many white people out there, or people from all different ethnicities that are out there. So the world definitely changed, and it's changing. And so what is our job as producers, as writers? We certainly should look, but we shouldn't just jump out and start saying things. We have to watch closely and see where it goes. You can't just come out with the Kumbaya song or come back out with a mad song right now, because you gotta really kind of see what's happening. You certainly need to be there to say, okay, what's the next step? How do we change this? How do we make it happen? You know, how do we get people out there to register to vote, and not just vote, but also start reading to know, understand what you're voting for and who you're voting for, and what's the purpose of it? Where are we going? What do we want? The real question is, what do we want? Not just give me money, or not just give me this, but just what do you want in your neighborhood world? So you don't just go out and throw out emotions and write that song, because I feel like that. I feel like that's not necessarily what's going on here. When Stevie Wonder used to write the songs that he wrote, He was writing them because that was real things that were going on in his heart. And he was writing it, and we felt it that way. He wasn't writing it because, oh, this would be cool, you know, to do me a song that, you know, a protest song. I'm gonna write me a protest song. He wrote songs that were going on in his heart. And to this day, he still even talks like that and feels like that because that's the natural thing. So out of this, what do I want? Out of this experience and everything that's going on, it's not in the old stuff. It's the new artists that are to come. It's the young that have them marching and saying things better than we're saying them, feeling things better than we're feeling them. And that's where it's going to come from, is younger people are finally going to start saying things in a way that we don't quite know how to say it in the coolest way, or the way they will connect, but they will. And so anything I can do to help those artists figure out how to say what you want to say, then I think that's what my job is. My job isn't necessarily to be the leader voice and saying the things from my perspective, because it's not going to be my world much longer. It's going to be theirs. So I'm just, I just got a ticket for a little bit longer, and I'll be here to help them take it over.
Facilitate. Yeah.
For a lot longer, Kenny. What about you?
No, I mean, look, I can't even build on what was said, because what was said is the truth. And I think that that's where we have to rely on when we talk to the elders, so we understand where we came from and those who are alive. If you have people, elders in your life, talk to them about life, you know, not about what was or what could be or what should have been, but just let them talk and listen. We need to do a little more listening, a little less talking right now. Listen.
You know, collaboration is such a big part of what you do, as you each have spoken to, particularly in TV and film. And we have Judith Mccrary, who I know has collaborated with each of you.
What's up?
Hi, Judith.
Hi.
I know that you and Kenny are working on a very popular BET show now. Talk about that working relationship.
Well, I mean, it was really interesting because I hadn't been on a music-driven TV show for quite some time. Like the first TV show job that I had was New York Undercover, and that was completely different. It was a lot of clearing of music, which was incredibly complicated, but you know, it's a whole different process now. But we were doing remastering songs for actors who were playing real people who had performed on the show, and also doing needle drops for the show. And it was excruciating. Like, I had no idea that an artist could say, yes, I'll clear my song for the show, but their publisher said no. And so it just took me down a rabbit hole that I thought I'd never get out of. But eventually we got it done. And Kenny was very helpful, but he was also, you know, it's like interesting when musicians speak in music and you don't know what they're saying. Like, I wanted a song done, and both Kenny and his engineer said to me, that's a lot of chords. And they kept saying it like I should understand what they meant. And he finally explained to me, she can't play the piano and sing at the same time. It's too many chords. But if you don't speak music, you're just like, okay. So, right, Kenny?
Right. Remember that moment.
You know, and then of course you've also worked with Chris.
Yes.
What was that like?
Uh-oh. Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Wait, why you putting on the spot like that, man? We don't know what's gonna come out right now.
Actually, it was pretty fantastic, because what happened was Dick Wolf just said, go for it. So what I did was I split. He was in 2 episodes and they were split by exactly 1 year apart, which showed the true process of someone arrested for murder, it takes them exactly a year to bring the case to trial. So that was pretty great. Even though he was, oh my God, the demands, he wanted his M&M separated.
I knew it was coming. Hey, you know what's crazy though? Not to cut Judith off, but I named Crash earlier about being, you know, a monumental moment for me. But if anyone were to ever ask me what my favorite role that I played was, it's definitely this Law and Order. Out of everything I've done, and that's television, completely separate from any movie I've done. I feel like that was the most challenging and the best role that I've played is playing that Darius character on Law and Order. And I love that role more than anything. So thank you, Judith, for being there for me and helping me through that. I mean, I had a headache after I played that role because that's how much I was in, you know, that character of what he was going through. And until this day, they keep re-airing this episode that we did like 14 years ago. And I'm like, wow. Never in a minute, I didn't realize that was going to happen. So I'm very thankful for Law and Order.
Well, and just speaking to that, the one thing that I think, going back to a previous question about what Hollywood should do to meet this moment, and I can't believe that I actually have to say this and that we actually have to do it, is to just do the smaller stories that show that people are actually human. We got to go back to the fundamentals in just declaring that for people who, whole groups of people who are alive and breathing, and yet they're not seen as human. To actually have to walk around today with signs from the 60s going, I am a man, or even I am a woman, because, I think that what happened to George Floyd was that cop decided that he wasn't a human being. He made that determination, and there are a whole lot of people that look at other groups of people and say they don't matter because they're not human. And I think our stories have to go back to the fundamentals, the foundation of that, which is blowing my mind that we actually have to be convinced that other people actually have a right to live. But that's what we got to do, period.
Well, I wanted to take that and say, like, you guys have projects that you've been brought on to, or, you know, as Chris said, he's, you know, you've been called into the audition, but what about your babies? What is something that you are either working on right now or just wrapped that was something that you either ideated or got behind and were kind of in more of a spearhead situation, be it, you know, a movie you're working on, or I know that Chris has had some things in the works recently, a show, like, how has it been bringing your own babies, your own ideas to the forefront, and what are those right now?
Is that to me?
That's all of you. So we can start with Judith.
No, it's okay. It's just that the business is sort of shut down right now. Some people are taking Zoom pitches, but they're very hard. It's really difficult. Can you imagine trying to pitch a project like this to a group of executives? It kind of doesn't work. So it's just a matter of writing on spec your own stuff so that by the time this shutdown is over, you have something for them to read. And I feel like I have to reboot now. Everything. What was important to me 3 months ago isn't important today. I feel like I have to start over, to be honest.
Guys, how are you? I mean, Ricky, how are you going to transition back in?
Well, that's the thing, you know, before all this started, I had about 7 or 8 projects that I was developing everything, and had meetings set up the week before the shutdown. And so pitch meetings. So I'm looking at every single one and same thing, the same thing too. Is this important to me? Is this relevant? What is the story that I want to tell? And like Kenny said, based on the time I have left, what is the story and where do I want to spend my time and how do I want to leave this place better, and better than it was in my little small world? How can I, because that's where it starts, from inside out. It's never outside in, it never was, and it never will be. It's inside out. So I have to reevaluate inside and take a look at these things. And there's a couple of them that I'm starting to look at that I push to the side. It may not be what the story that I want to hear or that I want to tell.
Yeah.
What about you, Kenny?
It's been kind of funny for me because it's been a weird time because it's like, I actually, at the top of March, I actually had caught, the virus. I was down for about 17 days with this virus and self-quarantined. And so that gave you a whole lot of time to self-reflection and, points where you were scared, not knowing whether is this going to get really bad, and just not knowing. And then coming out of it, which was the weirdest thing, all of a sudden this little idea comes up from Swiss Beats and Timberland about doing this whole battle thing, and I find myself in the middle of a battle with Teddy Riley, and which was, we like to call musical, which we call musical celebration. And so what happened from that was that it seemed like the world had already stopped, and it felt like the world wanted to come and dance and be in love and listen to music that made them feel good. And everybody that was trying to get on there, that couldn't get on, everybody was coming on there to, not for the battle, but just for the music. And it was from all age groups. And so suddenly there was, suddenly there were new fans that I picked up and new people that were interested because they heard music that they hadn't heard before, or hadn't heard in a long time. Their parents listened to it and said, oh, wow, maybe they weren't so wrong after all. It does feel good. And so for me, things have been kind of busier because of that. And other doors have opened because of that. And so it's kind of given me a voice to where I'm very careful about what I say and how I say things, because it's this time that we have. Once again, the world has changed. Otherwise, I can look at, I had so many dates that I had canceled, all the things, because I'm out still performing live, and those dates, I'm sure that's not going to happen until 2021 at this particular point. And I have to be concerned about the guys that I work with, the musicians that I work with. What happens with them? They don't get to go out and, they don't have the same opportunities that I have, and so it affects so many things in terms of what has happened with us all. So, and even in doing film, doing TV, everybody can't go right back to work because we still have to concern ourselves with social distancing. We ain't out of this yet. Feels like it, but we don't know. So it's hard to know exactly still at this point where any of us are going. We just got to kind of be positive and hope that and pray that it works out and keeps going. But I think in the process of it, the only thing we can do is pray and be positive, and that it does work out. And that's kind of like where I go. I like, I just kind of approach everything like this is going to turn out okay, and stay positive, because that's the only thing I know how to do is stay positive and always believe that it's going to work out.
I know we wish this could last forever, but unfortunately, our time is up today. But on behalf of the African American Film Critics Association and PGA, Again, we'd like to really, really thank you for giving us your time, sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. And yeah, thank you.
Thank all of you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Joe.
having me.
Thank you, guys.
Guys.
Can we
Okay.
answer maybe a few questions from the Q&A, maybe at least
Do
one?
we have time for that?
We can probably answer like 2 of them. And I think they can even type in the answers.
Okay, Janine, do you want to take one, or do you want me to start?
Sure, sure. This one is coming from Malcolm Farrell, and it's for Ludacris. What are some key things you have learned that helped the acting fundamentals?
Key things that helped my learn acting fundamentals. I could say that I worked with Terrence Howard twice, and he taught me some things early on where it's like, you know, when you come into doing a movie and you get direction, you know, from the director, and you doing a take, and they're constantly kind of telling you how they want you to do it. Terrence was always telling me, you know, you can take that into account. You can listen to what the director is saying, but always do deep down exactly what it is you want to do. Otherwise, they wouldn't have chose you as a particular individual for this role. And so that always stuck with me. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times you just want to please everybody. You want to come in and do the best you can. And if somebody's telling you to make sure you do it this way, that's what the beauty of doing different takes is. And then they get to choose from the best one or which one is the most organic. So I think that's one of the best things that stuck with me in terms of what I was told.
And Steve Temple is getting to it. He says, with the financial and creative success you each have earned, what type of financial advice do you share with the new emerging talent that seeks your personal advice? So let's take this into Kenny.
Financial, exactly what is it? What's
Yeah,
that?
he's saying, what type of financial advice have you shared with new emerging talent that seek you out personally because of your success?
I think, you know, Ricky said it earlier, you know, it's like, it's having a good team around you, because you can't know everything, and you can't control everything, and you can't run everything. And those people that usually try to do, it ends up being not working out so great, because you're trying to do something that you're not an expert at. So it's really kind of trying to surround yourself with a good team, usually not your best friend.
I was just gonna say the same.
Don't use
Your cousin Mike.
Yeah, no cousin Ray Ray's.
Mechanic. Mike the mechanic.
Exactly. Because now if they've gone to school and do that, and then maybe, you know, at that particular point, but many times family and business do not mix. And it's better to, you know, to surround yourself with people that also have done it before, so they can protect you, make the best deal for you, and that you can always be straight from it.
Sure. And this one for Ricky from an anonymous attendee. How has white privilege affected your stride through the TV and film industry? Do you think it was easier or harder for you because of your footing in the music industry? So have you personally been affected by white privilege?
If I have, I didn't know about it. You know, if I didn't get a job because of a white privilege, someone thought that I don't know about it. So I mean, for me, I'm just driving this train. I'm driving the Ricky train through, and either you going my way or you in my way, but I'm going this way, going straight ahead. Yeah. So I don't, like I said, I wouldn't know if it did, because I'm too busy working.
Got it. And then from Tobin D. Costa, and this is for everyone, but let's start with Judith. As leaders in the entertainment industry, do you feel you have a responsibility to have an impact on society as a whole? So do you feel that responsibility in the work that you just do in your daily life?
I don't necessarily think about it in those terms. I just start trying to tell the story I want to tell. If it's impactful, and if I've done what I was supposed to do and it says something weighty, that's great. But if I approach a story with the weight of that, the story will never fly. It just won't.
What about you, Chris? Like there's always that, I'm not a role model, I'm just me. But do you feel that responsibility?
No, I do feel that responsibility. I think with great power comes great responsibility. You know, we don't always want it, but we have to assume the role that we have it at a certain point. And I didn't really get to answer the last question, so I'm going to combine these two together in terms of what I'm doing with that responsibility. I feel like some of the art that I'm doing has to showcase that responsibility. And one of the things
I have on right now about foster care.
Yeah, so there's a movie I have coming out, and it's an independent movie, and I'm just gonna give the premise and then let everyone realize how this art is gonna spark a lot of conversation. And it's about an interracial couple that adopts a teenager that's part of the Aryan Brotherhood. So in terms of all the things in the conversation and things that are going on in the world of today, this is how I try to use my art to make change. And I can't tell you the whole story, but that's the premise of it, and that should be interesting enough. And also with the Kid Nation thing that I was telling you guys about earlier, which I know you're gonna check out once we get off of here, that's definitely creating a positive lane for the future.
You know, this was real sweet, but I know that Kenny has to go to a PGA mentoring session. Again, we thank you, and till next year.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to do this in person though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kenny, I worked with everybody else on here, so we got to work together sometime, man. Look forward to it.
Don't you threaten him.
I mean, the three of you collaborating would be, the four of you collaborating would be amazing.
Yeah.
Love it. I'll write about it.
Yes. We'll review it.
Thank you
so much, you guys.